but everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing the
Tampa market started to rise.
In Northeast Africa, precisely on the horn of Africa.
Okay, good morning, family. Once again, this is Frank. Welcome to WCC this morning. As usual, today the 6th, Friday of the first month of the year. This is Frank Mauba. I am your host for the Revolutionary Reparation Educational Lecture Series. Every Friday, 10 a.m. in the morning. So today's topic is Biden signed $1.7 trillion for government spending. $1.7 trillion for government spending and no reparation in the budget. And also we're going to be looking at Kelvin Hart show in Ethiopia and the reason why it have some backlash behind the show. And there's a protest that is being carried out right now to stop the show. I think the show should be next month. I believe so. But there's a protest right now to stop the show because of the meshes within the show. So somebody may ask, what is that meshes? Now, that is why we are here to give to the public what is in that meshes and why his show is on the verge of being canceled by people in Egypt, by people who occupy the land in Egypt. Okay, so we're going to look at that. But the first thing we're going to discuss this morning is Biden $1.7 trillion budget, okay, that he just signed, government spending. So we're going to look into that and we're going to link that to the African continent, and that's going to link again to the U.S. summit, okay, the Africa Leader U.S. summit that we just heard or that just ended. Okay, so we're going to look into that. So the $1.7 trillion going to link to that. Now, before we start, we just want to say thank to our patron, our supporter, for the continuous support they gave to WCC, and to all of you that are watching right now. We just want to say thank you for leaving your busy schedule to come on here this morning to listen to what we have for you. It is a collective effort and not individual effort, because I cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. And the next person cannot do it alone. We all have to chip in. And as we chip in, we all have to agree on one identity, one core, and one problem with one solution. So it is a collective effort in this journey. Once again, welcome. This is WCC. I am your host, as usual, Frank Mauba. Now, why this topic is so important, why this $1.7 trillion of Biden is so important to talk about, right? Now, Biden met the African leaders. Biden met the African leaders, and then after that, I think a week or two, he met with the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, right? Now, why did that happen? Why he didn't meet the Ukrainian president first before meeting with the African leaders? Why he met the African leader first before meeting with the Ukrainian president? Why? That's a very important question, right? Now, why just after meeting the Ukrainian president, Biden signed in $1.7 trillion Now, not just Biden, okay? Why it was so quick for the House, the Senate, to sign $1.7 trillion without no hesitation, without no, going on break and coming back like in a second, in a blink of an eye. $1.7 trillion was signed into budget for government spending. In no time, Congress was able to sign $1.7 trillion. But Congress cannot sign reparation. They have to go for a break. They have to go for this. They have to go for that. All right? Why it is, when it comes to reparation, there is always division in the House. There is always division in Congress. They have to go for break. And when they come for break, nothing here is done. Now, another aspect we're going to look at this morning is Zelensky met Biden and $1.7 trillion is sound into bill as government spending. One nation, Ukraine. But 55 nations in Africa met with Biden, and Biden told them, I'm going to give you $55 billion. 55 nations met Biden, right? And Biden said he will give $55 billion. One nation met Biden, and in no time, Biden signed $1.7 trillion. Are you guys understanding me? All right. Now, we're going to look into it. Now, why Biden waited for the African leader to go or to meet with the African leader before meeting with Zelensky? We have to look into that also. There could be a reason. Because in order to spend $1.7 trillion, Biden or Congress have to get that money back. Now, where are they going to get that money back from? Not from Ukraine. They're not going to get that money back from Ukraine if they spend $1.7 trillion. Now, they have to get that money back. And where are they going to get it? Africa. That is why they wanted to make sure to meet with African leaders to make sure stupid deal go on before meeting with Zelensky, because by that time they will be on the right track of whatsoever budget or money they spend in Ukraine, they're going to get it from Africa. That is why some so-called leader like DRC Congo gave their mineral resources to the United States with the pretext of making vehicles for the Congolese, right? Let's get into it. I don't want to talk too much. So the first article we're going to look at is the $1.7 trillion. Okay, the budget, how it's breaking down and how it's going to be spent. Okay, now, again, I'm not going to go in deep or in depth with the whole Ukraine situation because I do not want for this channel to be tampered with. All right, so there are some things I'm not going to say. I'm just going to brush over it. All right, because I want to keep this channel. We want to keep this channel. All right, so I'm not going to go depth into it. I'm just going to be on the surface and link it to Africa. Meaning it's about African people. All right, it's not about the relationship between Ukraine, Russia, and the US. Okay, so I'm not going to go depth into it because they might shut this live down and they may have problem with the WCC. All right, so we have to be careful on how to go depth into the situation. So I'm not going to go deep. All right, so if I don't go deep, just try to understand the reason. Okay, all right. Now, so this is from the CBS News, all right? So it says, let me take this out first. We're not going to take long here, actually. So it says Biden signed 1.7 trillion government spending bill. All right. Biden spent or signed 1.7 trillion government spending bill. Now, this is not just Biden, okay? So Congress, the Senate, the House, all right? So Biden did not just wake up and sign these things. So then the question would become why Biden is not signing the reparation deal, all right? Why Biden is not signing it? Why Biden is taking taxpayer money and spending it in Ukraine, but Biden cannot take taxpayer money to pay reparation for the descendant of the slave, of the enslaved, not slave, but the descendant of the enslaved African in that America. Why it is so difficult when it comes to reparation? Congress do not want to make any move. The Senate or the House do not want to make any move, or they don't want to take American taxpayer money to pay the enslaved, the descendant of the enslaved African. Why? But when it comes to other issues, they are so quick to take taxpayer money to pay. Let's continue here. Like I said, I'm not going to go deep into the Ukrainian situation, all right? Because even the American media, independent media, you know, they are being shut down for discussing this issue about Ukraine situation, okay? So the moment they want to go into who is fighting who, it become a problem because they want you to understand that it is Ukraine fighting Russia and it is Russia fighting Ukraine, all right? But the reality here is we know who is fighting the war. Again, like I said, we're not going to go deep into it, all right? Because even independent American media have been shut down just because they stated the truth of who is actually fighting the war, all right? Now, that is just an example. If you just met Zelensky and you signed $1.7 trillion, that is just telling you who's fighting the war. That is just telling you this war is not coming to an end anytime soon. That is just telling you World War III is already in the making. All right. Now, because of this was one reason they met with the African leaders, because America wants to make sure if she's spending money, she has to get it back. And it is always Africa that is always there to save these so-called European or Western nations. But these so-called African leaders have not yet realized it, and they sit on the African continent and do nothing for their people. Literally nothing for their people. Nothing for their people. Now, it says President Joe Biden, or President Joseph R. Biden, on Thursday signed 1.7 trillion government spending bill. Okay, government spending bill. Now, the bill includes more aid to Ukraine and funding for these domestic priorities. Okay, for his domestic priorities. So let's look at this. The White House said Thursday that the bill capped off a year of historic bipartisan progress for the American people. Now, like I just said, when it comes to certain issue, when it comes to certain people, certain race in this country, pertaining to certain people, it becomes difficult for both political parties to come together to discuss that issue. Why? So why was it so quick for both parties to come together? All right? In less than a day, they were able to come to an agreement to sign $1.7 trillion. But when it comes to African people issues, they can never come together. And that's a time they will say either the Republican does not want to support black people. Democrat want to support black people, but the Republican are the problem. But when it came to this, the Republican were never the problem. Folks, I just want you to understand things. I'm not going to go deep. Let's continue. The bill will advance cutting-edge research on cancer and other diseases. All right? Now, very good, right? But who's going to benefit from these things? Who's going to benefit from these things? Let's make progress. Make communities safer. Who community going to be safer from the $1.7 trillion? Let's make progress. Deliver for our veteran. Who going to benefit from it? When you're talking about most homeless people in the United States, the veteran have good number of percentage in it. And those good number of percentage of homelessness, when it comes to veteran, of course, you know who are they. Let's make progress. I'm not going to go deep, like I said. Prioritize mental health care. Now, who community have the best healthcare system in this country? I'm not going to go deep. You already know. Let me progress. Improve access to high quality health care for Indian country. Now, this is another very important area that we need to look at. Why India is mentioned. Now, that is not to say I don't like India. Hey, I don't want for American taxpayer money to be spent on India, right? That is not my area. That is not my concern. But the issue here is why emphasis are being made on it, right? Improve the access of high quality health care for Indian country, right? Now, as we all know, nations are looking for other nations, other powerful nations to collaborate with, right? Now, as we all know, in this 21st century, we know the importance and the power of India when it comes to the United Nations, when it comes to votes. Pay attention, folks, when it comes to the United Nations, when it comes to votes. Now, India has been kind of a neutral, but her neutrality, you can see it that India is also on the side of China and Russia. Bear in mind, India also had calamity of slavery or labor, right, or colonization in that country. They also went through it, right? So they know they cannot and ever trust a nation that enslaved people, a nation that colonized other nations. They are colonizer. No matter what, they are still colonizer. No matter what, they are still imperialist. So India know it. So India have been playing her game rightfully on the side of China and Russia. And the United States does not want to lose China in this time of global connection. All right? So that's the reason why she see it necessary to get China, or let's say Indian, at her side. Understand here, folks. Now, this again go to the African nation. The African leader. You are not just nations in Africa. You are a continent. Rule the continent like a continent and not nation, not individual nations. Rule the continent like a continent. That is to say, unite. Come together. There is no differences to say African leaders should put differences aside. There's no differences. The enemy of Ghana is the enemy of Nigeria, is the enemy of Liberia, is the enemy of Senegal, is the enemy of South Africa, is the enemy of Togo, Benin, Niger, Burkina Faso, and the list continue. They are the same enemies. That is why Julia Malema said, South Africa is not a name for Africa or for South Africa there. South Africa just means the South of Africa is not a name. And they are fighting to give South Africa a specific name, an African name, not South Africa. We just mean South of Africa. Understand this. Let me progress. The White House said it also provides the resources needed to support Ukraine. Now, we're going to touch on that a little bit, but I'm not going to go deep. All right? Let me progress. Provide the highest funding level for the Violence Against Women Act in history. Now, they are trying to say in Ukraine, Russia has caused the most violent act against women. Now, why did they put women in this narrative here? To make it look so emotional, especially when you say women. You know what it means to the war, right? To make it look emotional. But it said Putin have caused the most violent against women in history. All right. How about the violence against women in Burkina Faso, in Libya? Violence against people in Libya that was caused by the United States to go kill Gaddafi. Violence against women in Somalia with the same also influence. Violence against women in Burkina Faso as we currently speak by foreign influence. Violence against women in Mali by foreign influence as we speak right now. Violence against, the systemic violence against women in DRC Congo since 1884, the division of Africa. DRC Congo have been in chaos up to today, but they say also influence, which of course we know them. They say United States that support the M23 rebel. Let's talk about that now. Let's talk about that. Violence against women in other places, in other parts of the world. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. All right? So violence have been caused against people in every places in the world by the same people pointing fingers. Let me progress. They say, and take a long overdue action to show up our democracy and preserve the will of the people by reforming Electoral Account Act. Now, what is that democracy? We have discussed that several times. Let's continue here. Mr. Biden is advocating in some context after spending Christmas at the White House. The White House said Thursday that the bill was delivered to Mr. Biden for his signature on late Wednesday afternoon on a regularly scheduled commercial flight with no time. $1.7 trillion was signed after just meeting Zelensky. The bill was approved last week by the Senate. I just told you, in no time, the Senate, the House, Congress, they were able to just come to one understanding. The bill was approved last week by the Senate and House of Representatives after a period of negotiation, along with a speech by Ukrainian President Zelensky before Congress in a plea for funding a guaranteed the future of our common freedom. The spending package will provide an additional $45 billion in emergency assistance for Ukraine. Now, this is why I want to make another point clear to the African leaders. Few weeks ago, African leaders were in Washington, D.C. Biden promised them $55 billion, and they all went, wow. 55 nations, and they promised you what? $55 billion, and you thought that was plenty of money. But here it is. One president, 55 president met Biden, 55 billion was promised. One president met Biden, $1.7 trillion in government spending was promised. And in that, $45 billion additional spending. That is to say, more than $45 billion have been spent in Ukraine. The last time I checked, $54 billion have already been spent in Ukraine. And before this $1.7 trillion, the last time I checked, Biden requested to Congress for additional $37 billion, equivalent to $91 billion. Plus, here it is again. They are saying additional $45 billion will be spent. Now, let me tell you, so-called African Negro sitting in Africa there. You can never ever measure arm with the United States that will just sit in no time and send in budget $1.7 trillion. You are a continent until you guys can come together, because no individual African nation will just sit down in less than a second, blink of an eye, and sign $1.7 trillion budget. No African nation will do that. As long as you remain individual nation, until you guys can come together collectively, the African situation will not be solved. Because America will use her financial influence, her financial power to continue to strangle the African continent. Now, this money that are being spent, America have to get it back. And Africa is the continent that are going to pay this money back. For typical example, Zambia and Congo just signed a deal to give their mineral resources to America, while their nation or their citizens suffer and perish and die in poverty. DR Congo sat down there, and America told them, we're going to fix electric car for you. And you gave your lithium, your uranium to America. You think it is about electric car? All this money they spending here, America going to make sure she get it back through that lithium and uranium. And to also fasten her military bet and might with your mineral resources to build more ammunition and more deadlier weapon. If you don't know, my friend, this is why they met you guys first before meeting the Ukrainian president, because they have to make sure if they should have met the Ukrainian president and put this forth and a secret come out and you went to meet with them, you might not have agreed to give them your mineral resources for little or nothing on a cheap propaganda of coming to face electric car for you. Abomination. Either class, either mad, either stupid. Let's continue here. The spending plan include $772.5 billion for domestic priority and $858 billion for defense. Now, $858 billion for defense. Africa, you little tiny country. You want to make yourself tiny. What is the budget your military budget of defense. What is your budget? You tiny little country. Instead of you guys coming together to unite, you won't do it. How you going to fight a nation where its defense budget is in billion? 858 billion. Can you stand up to a nation like that? Where you little tiny nation, your defense budget is it can be million, it can be million. Maybe some kind of 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. Also kind of 800,000. Not even million. You guys should stop being greedy. And that is why I brought this out. So you can look at the picture here. If it wasn't because of the African resources, I can tell you for facts, Joe Biden or the Congress or both houses was never going to sign $1.7 trillion on a stupid budget in Ukraine. They are now going to send $858 billion on defense. Because you know what it means here? They're going to build more military, how they call it, equipment on your own resources. That is why they say, Zelensky, wait, that we meet with these so-called Negro, called as African leaders. And after war, they're going to come and write book and say African leaders are corrupt, and they will be right. They're going to come and write book and says African leader, they don't know what to rule, what leadership is. They don't know how to lead their people, and they will be correct. And we will read this book and come and put it in your faces because you people can learn. We bring these things, you guys see it, but you think money is all to it. But your resources is what the people are coming for, but you don't get it. Why they waited? They met with you people before bringing Zelensky in. And when they brought it in, no time, right there, $1.7 trillion was already signed. That is to tell you who is fighting the war. I'm not going to go deep. But now you get it. Let me take this out. Let me bring something here so you can see it. Let me bring something here so you can see what we're talking about. I'm not going to go into it. I mean, it's here already, all right? But I'm not going to go too deep into it because I don't want for this channel to be disabled or to do something, okay? Let it just be like that because I can tell you right now, some independent American media have been tampered with, and we follow them, but they have been tampered with. I can tell you for sure for that because they try to explain who is actually fighting the war, who is actually fighting Russia, okay? And whose support is going there, okay? And like I said, let's just stay like that. Now, let's look at something here, all right? Let's see something here quick. Let's see something here quick. So this is an article from CNN. Again, I'm not going to go deep. I just want you to see, and then maybe you can do your own research on it because there are some things we will not really say because we want to keep our channel flowing. But we were just bringing highlight. It says U.S. to send Bradley vehicle to Ukraine as part of a new aid package. I just told you about DRC Congo, the uranium, the lithium that is said they're going to use to build electric car for the Congolese. We talked about it last week. It's a fiasco. It's a fiasco. So they're going to use our resources, the Congolese resources, right, to build more ammunition, more deadly weapon to fight this World War III. That was what this U.S. Africa Leadership Summit was for. Even if some African leader right, do not give in. At least half of those nations with valuable mineral resources will give in. US to send Bradley vehicles to Ukraine as part of a new age package. This was not in a package, but right after meeting these so-called African leaders and the Congolese president standing in there that day like a slave, gave his resources, gave his lithium and uranium, because he was lied to that they're going to face electric car for his people to be driving when you don't have road for the electric car in DRC. When your people, 90% of your people are fighting war, are in war, like, I mean, in the forest, where they going to ride the electric vehicle when they are being fixed by America? Where? So this is where your uranium, your lithium going to go. It's not going to be used to fix electric car. Who going to ride electric car with battery in America during the cold season, during winter? It's not going to, who going to drive it? So this is where your mineral resource is going to go. It's not going to go on electric car. They're going to face more mauling weapon, sophisticated weapon to prepare for World War III. America wanted to make sure to gain ground in Africa, to make sure some of you so-called African leaders gave out your right to them before they can embark on this journey. Now, you see right here, right? That's the military equipment. That's the military vehicles. Your uranium, your lithium, your iron ore, this is where it's going to go for World War III. The United States will supply Ukraine with Bradley fighting vehicle right here. Okay? After you have given your resources out, that's the electric car they're going to face for you Congolese. I'm sorry to say this, folks, but this is the kind of electric car they're going to face for the Congolese. As part of a new security assistance, now you see it. The United States going to give fighting vehicle to Ukraine as part of a new security assistance package to the country as it near the 1-year anniversary of Russia invasion. Okay? Russia invasion, but me, I will call it Russia special military operation, period. That's what the United States do. So we'll use the same thing. But I'm not going to read the whole thing. Again, like I said, it's there. I don't want to go deep into it. But I'm just going to bring a highlight as to the reason why these things are coming out right after meeting those so-called African leaders who don't want to be individual nations, who don't want to come together. Okay, that is why I'm bringing this out to highlight it, because the issue here is they may think I'm calling it so-called or so-called Negro, but the reality here is an open rebuke is better than a secret rebuke or secret love. An open rebuke is better than a secret love. Proverbs 27:5-6. You see it in it. Okay, and that is what exactly these Western nations do to the African leaders or to the African continent. They come pretending that they love African people. They come pretending that secretly they love African people, but secretly they do not love African people. Okay? They don't. And we keep saying these things over and over and over. So this is where your mineral resources is going to go. You, DRC Congo. You, Mr. President, this is how your resources is going to go. You, Zambia, you are standing in the lade like slave. We are big stomach in front of you. Being a security guard to blinking. This is where your resources going to go. and not for the benefit of Africa, but for the benefit of preparing for World War III. Now you know who fought in Russia. Let's continue here. The next topic, we're going to Kelvin Hart. Okay, so one nation is getting 1.7 trillion. Why are you getting 55 billion and you think that plenty of money? I don't know, African leaders have not yet realized the continent of Africa worth $quadrillion. But because they are blind, that is what's suffering we African people. Let's go to Kelvin Hart. But like I said, I'm not going to go deep into it because I do not want for this channel to be shut down. But that is just it. If they can see this channel and be able to reason, I think it will help them in their leadership capability on the African continent. Because these so-called Western leaders, we call them, you see them running coming. Now, the next area we're going to look at is Kelvin Hart. While there is a problem from certain people and not wanting for Kelvin Hart to host this show in Egypt. Let's see here first, then before we can go a little bit dive into it, okay? Now, it's a cause grow to cancel Kelvin Hart comedy show in Egypt over Afrocentric view. Now, before we go into it, right? Kelvin Hart, he's a comedian, very brilliant, right? Let's see this, folks. First of all, let me tell you this. The revolution is taking place in so many levels, in so many areas. We just have to be on alert, okay, and know what is going on. Few months ago, Karen Evans said, how can I be Kemetic, or how to call it, Semitic, when I know my own history, when I know my identity? Okay, some of these celebrities, they are also frightened. The term, this is our time. We just have to understand the honor cause of these things and why it is happening and why people are solely focused against it. Now, why should people be against Kelvin Hart for saying black people were in Egypt? The current people in Egypt are not the creator of that area. Why should Kelvin Hart do it? Why should Kelvin Hart work with people who want to bring out the actual Egyptian story, the actual Kemetic story? Why? That's a very big question. That is why we are here, and we're going to answer some of those questions today. Why should his show be canceled from bringing out a history about Egypt, a history about Africa? Why people are hiding the history? Why people don't want to bring out the history? Why? Why should it be a problem if somebody want to bring out the truth? So does that mean people that are holding on to something, they are lying, they have lied to us for a century of years, they have lied to us? That means they are not the truth people of the area. That is why they are hiding the truth. They don't want for the truth to come out. Let's continue here. He say some Egyptians have taken to Twitter accusing the U.S. comedian of black washing. Now white washing now, right? Now they say what? Black washing. No more white washing. So the moment you want to bring out the true history, the true identity of an area, of a race, of a geographical location, of a setting or territory. Now it becomes from white watching to black watching. Now, if it is called white watching, that means it was black history before it became white watching. And now, if we want to go back in time, then it say it's black watching. Let's read something here. Egyptians have taken to social media, calling for comedian Kelvin Hart, debauched in the country, to be canceled over his past comment in support of Afrocentrism on ancient Egypt. Afrocentrism on ancient Egypt. Okay? Now, that is to say, the current history of Egypt is fake, is white watching. Now, say we want to go back in time to bring the history and they call it black watching. That is to say, the current history of Egypt that is being narrated to all is white watching. Why is it a problem, right? Then, if you think it is not real, why can't you sit down on a table to debate with Kelvin Hart or to debate with the people that Kelvin Hart going to work with to bring out this story? Why can't you go and sit and debate with them and prove yourself wrong or right that what they are saying is wrong? All right? But folks, we are here today. We're going to show a video where they themselves try to contradict themselves. Okay? Now, let's read here. A hashtag calling for Kelvin Hart's show to be canceled or boycott has become one of the top trending topic on social media in Egypt over the past few days. Now, it is not just in Egypt, okay, folks? It is not just in Egypt, but I just want to focus on Egypt so we can say, but it's African after all. It's African who is trying to boycott it, okay? Now, understand the history of the current day Egyptian, the 21st century Egyptian, where they came from. That is to also tell you their root, or even in Europe, that in Europe, that they are the main mastermind behind these things. Let's continue here. On Twitter, you just say Afrocentric want to steal. Now listen to this. Afrocentric want to steal and attribute Egyptian civilization to African and tell modern Egyptian that we are occupying Egypt from them. We are occupying Egypt from them. Now, if Kelvin Hart have a proof that Egypt was black, it was black people living there, and it was black people that established a place, it was black people that gave the foundation, and they show evidence, and you as so-called white Egyptian, and you cannot prove it. That is to say, Kelvin Hart is right. The fact that you are even saying to boycott it, and you do not even want to go into the story to see what he have to give you or to present to you, that is to say you are afraid. And we're going to say the reason why you are afraid. Now, they went as far as saying, we must all, the so-called Egyptian, we must all participate in the campaign to cancel Kelvin concert. Why would a some person want to participate in a campaign of such? I would rather participate in a campaign that will actually want to bring out the actual story. Why are you hiding the story? Why don't you want for the story, the actual story, to come out? Why are you angry? I thought you should be happy to actually learn the truth. Let's continue here. Kelvin Hart, a popular U.S. comedian, is a prominent Afrocentrism who advocate examining history through a lens that focus on the role of Black Africans. Some followers say modern Egyptians have no claim to the country's ancient history because they are the descendant of Arab invader. That is why they are afraid. They themselves know the history, that if Black people actually come out with the true history, if they allow such show of Kelvin Hart to take place, that will discredit them, what they have said over the year. We all know where these people came from. Even Alexander, the so-called great, land in Africa and had his lap in Egypt. And before he left Egypt, what happened? They burned it down to ashes because they were trying to hide the evidence. Because evidence were in that lab proving that Egyptians were Black. And they destroyed it. That's the secret. And now if we go back in time and bring the time back to life, what that means is it will give Black people the power. Black people will take their place back in the world. And that is what they don't want. They don't want Black power. And Black power is not in any way means negative, like they see what white power is. Black power just means everybody live freely. Nobody have time to oppress anybody. Black power just means welcoming. That is why when you so-called Westerner went to Africa, we welcoming people. That was Black power. No race. No hate. Unlike white supremacy. The fact that you cancel this, you trying to cancel this story or this event only because this event will narrate a story about Egypt, that is white supremacy right there. Modern Egyptian was at various point in history part of the Greek. Exactly. That's where you people came from. Part of the Greek, Roman, and Arab Empire. The country is an ethnically and religiously diverse nation of more than 100 million. Egyptian even claim ancestry from Christian, or sorry, from I don't know, I can't pronounce talk going back to the Ottoman Empire. They are also Egyptian of Nubian descent. Some school of thought claim that Coptic Christian, who number between 10 and 15% Egypt population, are the most direct descendant of ancient Egyptians. So then, why should people go against this when the history is there clear? Why are these so-called Arab people based in Egypt afraid of? Why are these so-called Roman based in Egypt are afraid of? Let's watch something here and see why they are afraid. Okay? Let's see why they are afraid. Now, let's look at this narrative that coming from them, all right, and see why they are afraid, okay? And this is how they have tried over the year to diverse African identity, African history, African civilization. For each time they see great civilization about African people, they say it was alien, some alien that came from space. Okay? Let's see this. Let's see their narrative here. Let's see how they contradict themselves here. Hopefully, I get it. Okay, it's this. I'm going to mute myself here. I will come.
Africa is a big continent, and it's arguably one of the richest. This continent is abundant in natural resources such as gold, oil, diamonds, and a lot more. Almost every country in Africa is brimming with natural resources. However, that's not everything the continent has to offer. The entire continent contains a lot of undiscovered secrets and many mysteries to unveil. Africa has a rich and diverse culture.
All right, so I want you to pay attention, right? Where they're supposed to give the credit to African people or to Black people, they call it mystery. They call it alien invasion. Okay, so pay attention here. And this is what they don't want. Okay, they want us to believe that anything of Black people is alien, is mystery.
In fact, there have been a few discoveries that remain a mystery until today. From the Bokoni tribe of South Africa to mystery alien boxes, here are 15 unsettling discoveries in Africa nobody can explain. Number 15. Bokoni tribe, South Africa. The ruins left by the ancient Bokoni tribe is one of the most mysterious ruins in South Africa. Slopes, terraces, stone walls, and settlements left by this tribe are left across the modern town of Machadodorp, and for many years, little was known about them. These ruins and enigmatic stone walls have ignited controversy and heated debate over the years. It was said that the Bokoni tribe inhabited these settlements about 200,000 years ago, or maybe even far older. Historians believe that studying these ruins can change the origin of mankind. The Bokoni ruins are considered to be remnants of Africa's lost city. The ruins may be the one to prove that a tribe flourished in South Africa long before colonization. Because they're visible from space, there are many claims proposing that these alleged settlements are alien communication devices, left behind either by our ancestors or by aliens themselves. Some historians claim that the ruins may even be human.
So you understand why they don't want to give the credit to African people, Black people. Now, you came in an area, you saw people living there. People occupied the land. People inhabited the land. People tilled the land and the soil. They had their form of civilization. Then how dare you say it was a mystery? How dare you say it was some alien that came from somewhere else and built this thing for the Black people that lived there? And up to now, you cannot prove where this alien came from. Up to now, you have nothing to prove that this alien came from space, or they came from here, they came from that, they came from that. This is how white supremacy have managed to wipe out African identity and make it there. And the moment you want to go back in time to bring it out, and then they contradict themselves by saying it was some alien that came and put it there. So Black people couldn't make this by themselves. It was some alien. But then prove to us where this alien came from. If this alien did this, then by now, then up to now, these aliens should still be coming back to build more civilization on the African continent. So after these aliens, as they say, built it or constructed these things, then this alien flee and it went away and never came back. Then who maintained it? Who gave the knowledge to these African people to maintain what these aliens built? You see how naive and stupid these white scholars are.
Huge astrological clocks. The Bokoni ruins have always been in Africa, and no one bothered to study them until recently. Today, there are still many speculations surrounding this settlement, and perhaps we'll never know the truth. Before we go on, like this video, smash
you listen to that, perhaps we will never know the truth. The truth is there. The truth is Black people built it. Black people built that civilization. That is the truth. The truth is the fact that you did not meet aliens there. There was no alien when you went there. You met Black people there. And that's the fact. That's the truth. No alien that came from space that put it there. The truth is Black people put it there, built it there. And that's the truth. So how can you say up to now we can never know the truth? When you yourself say you met these tribes, you met these people there, you never met alien there. When you went to Africa, you never met alien. You met Black people, you met African people. Period. Take it or you leave it. Nonsense.
Smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell right now. Number 14. City of Stone in Zimbabwe. This is the arduous work of the ancestors of the Shona people that lived in Africa between the 11th and 15th centuries AD. The word Zimbabwe is actually a Shona name that can be translated to houses of stone. Fittingly enough, the Great Zimbabwe, or the City of Stone, contains stone enclosures with walls as tall as 36 feet. Today, this is very easy to build, but people back then didn't have any mortar.
And by the way, just to make another corruption, right, about this Zimbabwe, where they're showing here, right, this place was damaged during the colonization period when they went to colonize Africa, all right? Most of these places were damaged, okay? And what they did it for was to destroy evidence. That's what they did it for. They did it to destroy evidence because most of the whitewash history, it came in around the 1800s. Okay? So when they went to colonize Africa, they destroyed these things so that the narrative they will come our way and will be right.
Available. Just like the pyramids found all over the world, the city stone of Zimbabwe yet again proves that we should give more credit to our ancestors. Even still, these stone walls led to the debate of historians all over the world. There isn't much known about Great Zimbabwe. Most of the records found about this city date to the 16th century, a period after the whole place was largely abandoned. Although there is one definite fact regarding this place. When European explorers arrived,
again, that is again another proven fact that African built this thing, not alien, right? Now he himself said around the 1600, these things were destroyed. Now, what took place around the 1600? Slavery. Now, during that time, what happened to the African continent? Labor force were driven or taken away from the African continent. Okay? Scientists, African scientists were taken from the African continent and brought into the so-called New World. Engineering, doctors were taken from the African continent and brought into the so-called New World. So these things were left abandoned. And there was no maintenance. Again, they have to break down. Do you understand? And when these Africans came to the New World, what happened? They began to invent. And as they invent, as they make things, their slave master owned it because they were owned. So as a slave, if you invent anything, the slave master take the credit. That the light bulb, Edison, they say Edison manufactured or invented light bulb was a black man who was a slave. So all these scientists and doctors left the African continent. What do you expect of these things? They will still be there standing? Who maintained them? These are the things they are afraid of when you become to get into history It brings out the white lie that they have passed on to us for centuries of centuries. But the evidence are there.
Arrived at the site in the early 19th and 20th century. They took some artifacts from the ruins of Great Zimbabwe and claimed that the lost city was built not by Africans, but by Phoenicians or other groups from Asia or Europe. In reality, the people of Zimbabwe have been aware of the existence of these ruins since the very beginning, and
So, again, see the stupidity, okay, of these white scholars. You went in an area, you met this civilization, and then come and write a book, and then says these things were built by some European or Roman. Does it make sense? Do you really want for African people to believe that these things were built by Romans or European? When did the European go to Africa, or the Roman go to Africa, or Western people go to Africa? When you are living in cave.
their predecessors were the ones that built this city of stones. Today, this place is considered to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's considered to be one of the national symbols of the modern-day country of Zimbabwe. In fact, the country embraced this uncovered settlement so much so that the nation was the one that adopted the name Zimbabwe in 1980, and they even included the bird artifact found in the archaeological site in their flag. Despite this fact, much of the site is still unexcavated. Archaeologists have many theories regarding the City of Stone. Some say that the folks before built the site on a hilltop so that they can perform rainmaking rituals. Regardless, the Great Zimbabwe shows how amazing the past tribes of Africa were. Number 13. Ledi Jaw. It's amazing how a single piece of fossil can easily shake the foundations of the origins of mankind historians and archaeologists carefully organized. In 2013, archaeologists discovered the oldest human fossil in Ethiopia. It's a piece of human jaw called the Ledi jaw, which could have belonged to the stem for the Homo genus, the first of our ancestors. Many hominid remains have been
Again, sorry folks, I'm going to keep going, coming back. Now, this again relates to what Kelvin Hart is talking about to promote in his comedy in Egypt. Now, they themselves just said it. The earliest human being to live in Egypt. They're not white men, they're not European, they're not Arab men that are there occupying the land right now. Black men. So then, why should you say Kelvin Hart or how to call it Afrocentric want to black watch? You came in and whitewash the people history. Now they want to get it back, and then you say they are trying to black watch.
been discovered all around the world, and scientists have been carefully analyzing each one to create a map of the evolution of our ancestors. After careful analysis and studies, archaeologists found that the Ledi jaw is between 2.75 to 2.8 million years old. This means that it belonged to the first ever human ever found, predating the prior oldest known human fossil more than 400 millennia. It's quite amazing that just one fossil managed to push back our ancestors' family tree by thousands of years.
Now, Kelvin Hart is right. Kelvin Hart is not wrong. So why should you go against such a man that want to host a show to give you this kind of a history? Why should you go against such a man? He's right. You people have whitewashed African history. He's right that you people that occupy that land, you are not a true Egyptian.
Jaw has the characteristics of a primitive human, with teeth shaped like ours, but with a chin and slope that of an ape. Despite knowing the age of the Lettyjaw, little is known about the time period when it lived. Still today, their time is poorly understood. Number 12. Tswana City. Johannesburg, also known as Jozi, or 6 Laws 0, the City of Gold, is the largest city in South Africa, and aside from its sheer size, it also holds one of the ancient lost cities in the continent. Archaeologists dug up the long-lost ancient Tswana city near Johannesburg that was home to 10,000 people in the 15th century. It was originally discovered between the 1970s and the 1980s, but at the time, no one realized their importance. All they knew.
You went in an era, you met people living there. You met great civilization. And then you say it was discovered. You say people lived there in the 15th century. And then come out to say it was discovered in the 17th century. How you going to discover a place where people live? How you going to discover a place where they already have civilization? They have cultivated this land for years, for centuries. How you going to discover that place? Oh, okay, we understand. Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? When they met already people living here and they killed them with chicken pox, okay? And they said they discovered a place. We understand. Why people always discover a place where people have already been occupied. We understand. As long they were not living there, they were not there, and they go there, that means they discovered a place. Nonsense.
Was that they could have been settlements used by the people that lived there in the past. Fast forward to 2018, and scientists equipped with modern-day laser tech managed to reveal a huge city. The incredible site was hidden underground for centuries. This site alone is one of the several large settlements occupied by the Tswana speakers that roamed and flourished in Africa, years before the first European travelers ever stepped foot in the area. However, the Tswana cities scattered all across Africa suffered under the Defakane, which was a historical period of heightened military conflict and migration. During that period, many cities were abandoned, and many people perished. Models and laser images of this town have been reproduced thanks once again to modern technology, but there are still many things left to be discovered in the history of this place. Number 11. Lalibela Churches of Ethiopia. While the Great Pyramid is a very impressive architectural feat, perhaps one of the most amazing structures left behind by our ancestors is the Lalibela churches in Ethiopia. Unlike the pyramids in Egypt, not many people know about these churches. These establishments were created by carefully carving them out of a huge stone block. The people didn't use any bricks, concrete, lumber, or mortar. Yes, that's right. This church is created by months to years of carving and sculpting using ancient tools. 800 years ago, one king of Ethiopia ordered a new capital to be created for Christians. After his command, 11 churches stand in the central plateau of Ethiopia, standing at 8,000 feet, perfect to worship God. Not much is known about who built them or how long they worked on this establishment. Of course, many resorted to the divine explanation, saying that the churches of Lalibela were carved by the angels of God himself.
Now, again, did you understand this? Civilization built by African people, and then they took the credit from them and then said it was built by God angel that came from heaven or came from space or came from some unknown place and built this. Instead of it saying African people built it and they said it's mystery. Some alien came from space. It was God that sent angel that came and built it. Now, let me tell you again, one of the reasons why they try to divert the story to say it was God that sent angel to come and build it, if they say it was built by African, again, what that means is it will exactly, now it will come in the mind of African people that then we were practicing Christianity, or we were practicing Christ before the white man came, or before the white man came to Africa. Then that means this whole Bible thing is African people religion, or is African people story. It's not no damn some Roman Empire or some Roman people that came from there. So you see how they diverse the story to say it was God that sent his angel. to come and build this. Ha.
The architecture of the churches is truly astounding. Each side is adorned by Christian marks, and the details on the doors and windows are very charming. It's hard to imagine that this monolith church was created by people thousands of years ago. The sheer size of the churches are also impressive, with the largest of the 11 churches covering around 8,000 square feet of land, with each one being 4 stories tall. Because of how amazing the construction of these churches are, many people from around the world travel there to pray and express their belief. Number 10. Lake Natron. An alleged lake that turns animals into stone? That's the mystery surrounding Lake Natron in Africa. This lake is located in the Arusha district of Tanzania. Its very name will give you an idea about the lake's origins. The word natron is an amalgamation of the chemicals hydrate sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. The environment in the lake makes this one of the most interesting and mysterious natural phenomena to explore. The lake looks ordinary from afar, but once you venture closer, you'll see a red crust covering the lake's surface. This is caused by the microorganisms found in the mineral-rich water of the lake. The nearby volcanic hills, which were very active back in the day, feed the lake. The water is about 40 degrees Celsius, and it has a very high salt content, making this lake almost inhabitable for many animals roaming around Tanzania. During the dry season, the salt content causes an astounding phenomenon where every creature left in its area is petrified. In fact, this phenomenon has been the subject of many videographers and photographers across the world. Unlike lakes and rivers found in the expanse of Africa, Lake Natron is unforgiving for the weak. The pH level of the lake can be as high as ammonia, which can easily burn the skin and eyes of any animal that isn't used to its waters. Although you'd be surprised that the lake is still one of the best nesting and resting places flamingos choose. Number 9. White Lady of Africa. The White Lady of Africa is a name given to a rock painting located on a small rock hidden within the Brandberg Mountain Damaraland in Namibia. This painting has long been considered to be an archaeological dilemma, and several different theories about the origins and meaning of the painting have been proposed by several archaeologists. The painting portrays several human figures as well as...
Now, again, let me make things clear here. This narrator, right? He's using the English word paint. That means the paint that we use today, it was not created by the white man again. It was created by a black man, paint, okay? It was created by the black man. So the black man did not come to Europe to buy paint and then go to Africa to paint those things on the wall. Those things, those pictures on the wall were painted century upon century, and they are still there, and they were still there. And those are paint that was used. So that means African people, okay, they had great civilization, because so that means if a paint derived not from Europe or from the white man, it came from Africa. Paint that you have in your houses, on your building, it came from Africa.
Oryxes. The painting got its name because the White Lady is the most detailed human figure in the group. It was first discovered in 1918 by a German explorer, and his first initial theory is that it depicts a warrior hunting. Another theory proposed to
I want to get our narrative. It was never discovered in 1918. This German man just went to Africa and he saw it there. This German man did not discover it in 1918. It was there. It was painted by African, and this German man went. It just like if I go to Rome and then see ancient documentary about Rome, then am I going to say I discovered it just because I just went and saw it? No, I didn't. I mean, I went there for tourists and I saw it. So I can't write a narrative and then say I went to Rome, I discovered these things. This is how white people have changed, whitewash African history. Instead of him saying he went there and he became educated on the knowledge, but he come and say he discovered it. Discover what?
Explain the painting is that it shows some sort of ritual dance where the white lady stands as the shaman, given that she had white legs and arms, which suggests she may be covered in paint. Number 8. Stone circles of Senegambia. It may look like usual stones to you, but the stone circles of Senegambia are the largest group of megalithic stones recorded anywhere in the world. These amazing stone circles are scattered all around the area, with some of them found in Gambia, while some are found in Senegal. Overall, there are 1,053 stone circles comprising 28,931 monoliths. The Stonehenge is impressive, but imagine how hard it was and how many people it took to place these 10-ton stones ranging from 1 to 2.5 meters high. We may know little about these stones, but they reflect a prosperous and highly organized society that lived between 3rd century BC and 16th century AD. Most of these stones were erected near burial sites, so these stone circles may have been part of an ancient ritual for the dead. Number 7. Blue stones or stones of the sky. Blue is one of the rarest colors in nature. Just think about it. Aside from the vast expanse of the sky, blue rarely occurs in the environment. There are few organisms in the color blue, and most of the time, these blue organisms have developed some unique features that use the science of light. Africa is no stranger to gems, diamonds, and precious stones, but the sky stone is perhaps one of the most beautiful stones found in the continent. The sky stone has a vibrant electric blue shade, and it's its most notable characteristic. It was reportedly discovered in 1990 by archaeologists in Sierra Leone, West Africa. Legends believe that the stones were actually once beings that lived in the sky, but because of repeated sins, they were turned.
First of all, let's make this clear again. Mr. White Man or Europe or European, this thing was never discovered when you went to Africa. It was already discovered when African people were there. When you went to Africa, didn't you see gold chain on African kings and queens? Didn't you see gold watches, gold necklace on African kings and queens? You saw it. Then how can you say when you went there, that's the time these things were discovered? That is just to say it again, they take all credibility or all credit from African people to make our inferiors. And in order to make people look inferior and you look superior, you have to deny them of their existence. You have to deny them of their creation. You have to deny them of their civilization. That is what they did, and that is what they continue to do. You met African with gold chain, gold necklace. So African people, they mine gold. So African people have the knowledge of melting gold. So African people knew about those resources beneath the earth.
Into stones by God and casted away on earth to remain buried in the soil, a stark contrast to the privileged notable characteristic. It was reportedly discovered in 1990 by archaeologists in Sierra Leone, West Africa. Legends believe that the stones were actually once beings that lived in the sky, but because of repeated sins, they were turned into stones by God and casted away.
Again, you see the nonsense of these white scholars. The stone was in the sky. That's their belief. That's their narrative. Just to take away the credit. The stone was in the sky. Because of sin, the stone came down. Because of sin, the stone was sent on the ground. And then, all of a sudden, the white man came and discovered it. How ignorant can that be? So the stone sin in heaven. The stone sin in the sky. And then God decided, okay, you know what? You are a sinner. We're going to send you on an island so that a white man can come and discover you. No, Mr. White Man. These things were already there when African people were using it. I repeat myself. When you went to Africa, didn't you see gold on African people neck or chain as necklace? Didn't you see a diamond ring on African people, kings and queens? Didn't you see it? And you become to loot them and send it to Europe and America. Didn't you see it? You are looting them. Up to now today, you still have African artifacts that were built by gold. You still have it in your museum. You don't want to release them.
Away on Earth to remain buried in the soil, a stark contrast to the privilege they once had up in the skies. After careful analysis, scientists found out that the stone is made up of 77% oxygen, 20% carbon, and has traces of lime and silicone. The composition of the stone was enough to tell them that the local legends may actually be true, but instead of beings, these rocks may be space rocks. Carbon dating showed that these stones arrived on Earth anywhere between 2000.
Again, let me make some very clear point here. These so-called Europeans, instead of them saying African people are connected to the soil or African people are blessed, they don't want to say it. Why will all these resources, that take it with the narrative, okay? Let's just play the devil advocate. Why will these resources just fall from the sky and then it goes strictly to the African continent? And it don't fall in Europe. It don't fall in Australia. It don't fall in America. Why would it just go straight to the African continent and just fall there? Why? Why would it just fall from the sky and then it take Africa and say, no, I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Africa. Send me to Africa. Let me go to Africa.
In 517,000 years ago. They may have fallen in several parts of our planet, and they've been found in different periods of time. But across all ages and periods, mankind that came across these sky stones treasured them and regarded them as highly valuable objects. The sky stone of Sierra Leone is truly unlike any gemstone known to man. What do you think this stone is? And do you think the sky stone can be traced back to extraterrestrial beings? Number 6. Getty in Kenya. The ruins of Getty are historical and archaeological sites found in Kenya. It's one of the many medieval Swahili coastal settlements. The ruins were rediscovered by colonialists in the 1920s, and the ruins have been one of the most intensely excavated and studied sites.
So, let me make this clear again. You heard that. It was rediscovered by colonialists. When you rediscover something, what that means? You are not the first. When you rediscover something, that means you were not the first. And in this case, you cannot rediscover it because you went and met people there. It was a civilization. It was a place already built by people. You met people there. Then how are you going to rediscover it? These people are so stupid.
In Africa, the whole settlement usually consists of stone walls, mosques, tombs, palaces, and houses made of stone. Despite the artifacts found in the ruins, still today, there's much to discover about the ancient people that once lived in the ruins. Number 5. Omo bones of Ethiopia. The Omo remains are bones discovered between 1967 and 1974 at the Omo Kibish sites in Omo National Park in southwestern Ethiopia. The bones date back to 195,000 years ago, and it's one of the earliest examples of our.
Again, Kelvin Hart is right about ancient Egypt. If you bring out all these evidence Okay? Then that means these people live there. So then, why should you go against the man of hosting a show to talk about ancient Egypt or Kemet? When you hear narrating the story and you seeing it, you yourself narrating the story. So that means people occupying Ethiopia, or let's say Egypt, sorry, they are not a real Egyptian. Just like how we have the fake Jewish.
Species. The OMO-1 skeleton is the partial skeleton recorded in the 1960s. It includes a skull, several pieces of bones from the upper limbs and shoulder bones, as well as a few bone fragments from the hands and legs. A few artifacts were also found with OMO-1, including a variety of fossils that belong to birds. Because there were no written records regarding the time period when these ancient people lived, not much is known about them, and we can only rely on the discovered artifacts.
You see it, right? Because it is pertaining to African people. They said there are not much known story about them. But if it was white or European, they will go to the length to make sure to get more understanding or more story about it. But there are stories there. The fact that you saw this score, the fact that you even saw it, right? It means that there are stories there. But you do not want to go beyond the narrative to bring it out, because you'll be digging or uncovering story about African people.
And now it's time for today's topic. This is a very unsettling thing recently discovered in Africa that nobody can explain. Now you might be wondering what this thing is. Just from the metal
Again, another discovery. But he said nobody can explain it because they do not want to give the credit to African people. They do not want to tell how they call it high IQ we are, how brilliant we are. They do not want to give us the credit that this modern day civilization existed from Africa. This modern day technology actually came from Africa. Okay, it is this modern day technology is based on Asian African technology. They don't want to say, they don't want to give those credit, but they will say you can't explain it. It's mystery.
casing and the scattered metal spears, you will immediately think that this is some sort of weapon. And you're definitely correct. This is a cluster munition. These explosives are designed to release miniature bombshells, and they can be launched in the air or underground. These destructive weapons can easily annihilate
All right. So let's just understand something here, right? These are onion, these are metal, right? But the reason why they refuse to give the credit to the black men or to African people, right, is that during this time period, there was no white man. White man was not even around. Okay? So instead of them saying that, how did African people manage to melt this iron? How African people managed to discover iron ore? So that means African people were using iron ore. That means African people were mining iron ore and making it into finished products. They don't want to give the credit, but they want to give the credit to the white man to say it was white men that discovered, what you can make iron ore out of, or what you can make iron out of, or what can come from out of iron ore. So they want to take that credit. But if they say black people were already manufacturing iron ore and building weapons, you'll be giving that technology, that IQ to African people. They don't want to do that. Let's continue.
dozens of equipment and cause fatalities near its area of effect. Cluster munitions can also contain biochemical weapons or even landmines. The bomblets that cluster munitions release pose extreme threat to civilians that step on them even long after they're released. That's why if you ever spot one of these, you should always assume that the explosives are still active. Discuss.
Now, you understand what they call mine. Like if you go on a battlefield and they said there's a map in our area and they use modern technology to map the area, right? Now you understand that it exactly originated from African people knowledge. Now he's telling you those things are mine, that if you step on it, it will explode. So that is to tell you these modern technologies of mine actually came from Africa. They got a technology from Africa.
Termination in the photo in particular just appeared in the location overnight, and no one even heard the munition fall down. Could this be a cluster munition that came from the two world wars? Or did this missile come from another source?
Again, you see how they try to change the narrative, not to give the credit to the black man. They are saying, could it be it came from World War II or the two World War I, World War II? How will it come from World War I, World War II, and then you find it in Africa? Where was World War I fought? Where was World War II fought? Now, if even we are to look at the kind of weapon that was used in World War I, if that was the case, or World War II, if that was the case, then why can't you go back and do a research about World War I, how they call a map or weapon that was used in World War I or World War II, and draw your conclusion from there? Instead of saying it could be, then go to World War II and World War I and see the weapon that were used. Simple as that.
What do you think? As always, comment down below with the hashtag today's topic and let us know your opinion about what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 4. Africa splitting in two. In 2017, a disturbing theory circulated on the internet that shook many archaeologists and scientists around the world. The buzz was caused by a large crack that suddenly appeared in the Kenyan Rift Valley. From this picture, it's easy to imagine that the ground will suddenly split in two. The crack continues to grow day by day, and it even caused part of the Nairobi-Narok highway to collapse. Cracks on the ground are quite common. We all know that the Earth is ever-changing, and there was even a point in time when our ancestors lived where land bridges exist. After many years, the Earth became what we know today, but the land beneath our feet still continuously moves, slowly but surely. Millions of years from now, if the Earth still exists, that is, the continents won't be the same as today. Today, the massive crack is attributed by scientists to rifting, which is the splitting of land which takes millions of years to finish. First, a few cracks on the land will appear, but as years pass by, the crust will begin to sink, and water will start to overtake the area where land once existed. Number 3. West Africa.
Now, again, let's just explain some of the theory behind, even though he didn't say it, but he knows it, right? But let's explain some of the theory behind the reason of the crack. All right? Now, understand that the African continent have been under to major pressures, okay? Especially from the West when it comes to mineral resources. All those digging of the earth they are doing, okay, is giving more pressure on the land, and that is why you see the land is cracking, the land cracking and splitting apart. It's pressure because they keep digging in how they call it DRC Congo. They keep digging Liberia, I mean, all around the African continent, Kenya, or Ghana, Nigeria, all around. They keep digging for oil, for gold, for diamond, and at the same time, or cutting down our law, our timber, cutting everything down. It's depleting the earth, it's giving pressure on the earth, and that is why you see those things happening.
African voodoo. We have all seen voodoo being portrayed in media and some occult flicks. But did you know that it's really a practice done in West Africa? Because of what the mainstream media tells us, voodoo remains to be the world's most secretive and misunderstood religion. When I mention the word voodoo, I bet you'd imagine dolls, needles, cauldrons, and pins. Notice that these visualizations don't differ much from witchcraft. Many think voodoo is a violent religion, often practiced to cause harm upon others and nothing more. In movies, voodoo is used to inflict harm upon others. But this can't be more wrong. Voodoo is widely practiced in Benin, West Africa. It's a way of life which includes wonderful culture, philosophy, art, dance, music, and medicine. The supreme being in voodoo is called Mahao, and along with this being are 100 more divinities which represent many of the things in the world, including lightning, storms, water, and earth. The duty of the voodoo priests is to ask these divinities for intervention. For instance, the priest can perform a ritual to intervene on behalf of the ordinary people. People that practice voodoo in reality do nothing like sticking needles into dolls to cause misfortune. Although it's true that they sometimes use offerings such as sheep or chicken to appease the divinities. Their rituals can be used for many things. Some priests perform a ritual to cure someone of a disease, pray for good health, for healthy kids, or even to find a job. Indeed, voodoo is a mysterious yet amazing ritual that's shrouded in misconceptions. Number 2. Sacred crocodile. Performing stunts with crocodiles is nothing new. You'll see tons of attractions everywhere in the world where people risk themselves to perform some cheeky tricks with tamed crocs. Some people are even brave and confident enough to stick their heads inside the giant reptile's mouth and survive unscathed. But these things are merely performed to please the public, and nothing more. The story is different in a village in Africa where they perform rituals to crocodiles. For the people in Burkina Faso in Africa, the crocodiles living in its pond are considered to be sacred. You'd be surprised to see people sitting atop the deadliest and most cunning predators in the animal kingdom. The village shares their pond to about 100 of these fearsome predators. According to the locals, they got used to swimming with the crocodiles and sharing the water with them ever since they were kids. This practice was passed on from generation to generation until the existence of crocodiles is nothing more like the existence of the many monkeys in Thailand. Now, the origin of this practice is quite mysterious. According to local legends, in the 15th century, the people in the village were dying one by one because of a massive drought. With no water, they were sure to perish. However, the crocodiles led the women to a hidden pond where the people of the village were able to quench their thirst. This is the reason why they chose to flourish and live with the sacred crocodiles for the next years to come. The people in the village believe that the crocs are their past ancestors, and that no matter what, the reptiles won't harm them. Each year, they celebrate and give offerings to the reptiles to thank them. Number 1. Mystery.
Now, let's talk about this crocodile a little bit. Okay? Let's talk about the crocodile a little bit. I didn't even talk about the voodoo, but I'm gonna dive into it a little bit. Let's talk about the crocodile a little bit. Now, in the West, or even in America here, right? Or even in China or other places, you see them, how they call it, playing with crocodile for in museum where people go for tourists and they go to see them playing with it, right? All these things derive from Africa. Now you just saw history right here, right? That is why one of the most continent or nation in the world, right, where people go to do research is Africa. Africa is the area, the most interesting area people go do research is on the African continent. They go to do research for various things, for a lot of things. And they do research and they come into their war or their so-called war, right? And they practice it. So if you see people, even in America here, you go to the museum, you see people playing with crocodile. It did not start from when the women was in the cave. Okay, when they were living in the Caucasus Mountain, it did not start from there. They went to Africa, they saw it. They saw how Africa interact with these things. For example, what you just saw in there. Okay, they videotape it and they come, they practice it. And they ask the African, how do you do it? And the African people educate them. But they're not going to come and tell you, so I went to Africa and I was educated by African people. That again will be giving the IQ, the high IQ to African people. And when you talk about the voodoo, now, this is where the white men also, or the European, also lie to the African men so that they can be able to sell their drugs, so that they can be able to market their market or their goods or their finished product. They lie to African people that if you go to the voodoo for prayer, you'll be hated by the Most High. If you go to the voodoo for prayer, you'll be committing adultery or abomination act, right? But you just saw it. Voodoo is not a practice that kills people. It's a practice for healing, for prayer, for financial breakthrough, for marriage, for relationship, for job. The same way you go to the so-called white man church for prayer, to get job, to get financial, to get a good marital status, so that you can get into the next year with good prosperity. It's the same thing they do. Okay? Now, when you go to the church for prayer, what do? You give offering. It's the same thing they do with the voodoo. You give chicken, either for sacrifice. If you go for a prayer and you give anything in return of that thing, if the church do it, they see it as good thing, right? Then why, when African people do it according to their religion, then you say it's bad? You go to the church, you get offering. It's the same thing. If a man gave a chicken or goat or cow to a traditionalist that practice voodoo, it's the same thing. You give tax. You give taxes, right? You give offering. It's the same thing. To convince you so that you can get more African into European churches so that they can make more money, you have to tell them your form of spirituality is wrong.
Alien boxes. Recently, 24 alien boxes were discovered near Egypt's pyramids are their past ancestors, and that no matter what. Number 1. Mystery alien boxes. Recently, 24 alien boxes were discovered near Egypt's pyramids.
Now, listen to this, right? This was something that was never built by the white man. It was never built by the so-called white Egyptian in Egypt. So, this is what Kelvin Hart was talking about, or is talking about. This is a box, but they call it mystery. They call it alien that came and built it, because it was never built by the so-called Egyptian that are currently sitting on the land. So they call it mystery. So how did they get there? So that means people have lived there, so they are just contradicting themselves that they are not the original people in Egypt that are there. There were people living there before they came there. That is to say, they are not the original inhabitant of Egypt, current day Egypt. They are not the original inhabitant. That is to say, there were people living there.
Of Giza. The boxes weigh more than 100 tons, and they're made out of solid Aswan granite. The skill put into the creation of the boxes is extremely impressive. It was so remarkable that some experts even suggested that the boxes couldn't have been made by an ancient civilization like the Egyptians. Instead, the boxes may have been left by ancient alien species.
You listen to that. The boxes was never made by these what Egyptian, but they are saying it was made by some alien. Again, you see right there, they took away the credit from the black men. They say it was some alien. Then why can't they discover this alien? Why can't they tell where this alien came from? Why they can never see this alien? So that means this alien came and built these things and then left and just vanished and never return and never come back. So if they are not the one to build it, I mean, if it was never built by the white man or by the European or by the so-called current day Egyptian, then who built it? They don't want to say it was a black man, then they will say it was alien. Because if they say it was built by the black man, that will contradict their story, or that will contradict them that they are the real Egyptian or the original Egyptian. Then that means if they say it was built by people and it was not built by them, then who were them? Who were those people? Then there was people living in. That is what Kelvin is talking about. Anytime anything pertain to black person, then it's alien. It's mystery.
That visited Earth thousands of years ago. The boxes do contain some hieroglyphics, but unlike the cut of the stone, the inscriptions were so sloppy like the Egyptians. Instead, the boxes may have been left by ancient alien species that visited Earth thousands of years ago. The boxes do contain some hieroglyphics, but unlike the cut of the stone, the inscriptions were so sloppy that they look nothing more but graffiti added by people. Today, the box still remains to be a mystery, and no one knows its origin, its purpose, or who created it. What do you think of these discoveries?
So you see right there, they kill the man. Let's continue.
Have you ever had a chance to visit a country in Africa? If so, what's the most interesting experience you had on your visit? Let us know about your thoughts and experience in the comments down below. If you happen to know other mysterious discoveries in Africa, don't hesitate to drop a comment as well. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen.
So you heard that. If you have ever discovered any mysterious aliens invasion on the African continent, let them know. So that means everything on the African continent, as long as it was never built by the so-called white man, it was some alien that came from space. Imagine, even mineral resource, diamond, they said it came from the sky because it's sin. And God decided that, okay, we're going to send you on earth so that you can leave heaven or the sky and go on earth and go under the soil. These people are insane. How can a mineral resource sin? Sin. How can a rock, how can a rock sin? So what is a sin of a rock? How can a rock sin? S-I-N, like, how do you sin? How do you commit adultery? How did that rock or those rocks commit adultery? Let me see. Let me see here. Okay. Now, we're going to look at something here, and we're gonna watch this video and see some of the reason why Kelvin Hart, have been stopped. Okay, I'm just gonna allow the video to play. I'm not really gonna talk. I'm gonna allow the video play. Okay, so let me mute myself.
Haruna said, contact me yesterday. And he said, did you hear about Kevin Hart? And I said, no, I haven't heard about Kevin Hart. And he told me, that they are in Egypt attempting to stop him from coming to do a concert because he is leaning into the African-centric concept of Kemet. And it went for, and then he sent me the, Haruna said, sent me the article so that I could read. And they talked about the fact that Kevin Hart is supporting a company known as Black Sands. They produce illustrated magazines or comic books, if you'd like to call them that. Now, I'm very familiar with Black Sands because I have been supporting Black Sands from when they had the first comic book. This was the first one that they had, the first Pharaoh, #1. I've had this for a while. And they also have come out with hardcover comic books. And as you can see in the Instagram live I put up, and you may have already seen it, the fact that he was on Shark Tank and Black Sands presented their idea and Kevin Hart supported them. And again, Kevin Hart having children and wanting his children to know the truth, in supporting them, supports the ideas that are being presented in Black Sands. But family, please allow me to take you someplace else, because I not only purchased from Black Sands this idea of Kemet, but they also have a series on the Orishas. 1, 2, and 3. This is West Africa, Nigeria in particular, Yoruba, if you want to get deep inside of it, in terms of the spiritual systems. And they now have comic books dealing with the Orishas. But hold on. Now you can understand why people are getting upset, because they're trying to hide the truth. Because not only that, but they also have Granada, which deals with the Moors. So they've got a series of comic books dealing with Granada, okay, the Moors, okay. So that's good. But not just that. You can see what's happening, family. We're on the road. We're getting there. And we have to understand that, because this is going to get to the children. And once you get to the children, then you can get the message to them to help them understand. They have the Muntu warriors, okay? Muntu, the people, okay? A series, okay? And they have even more than that. But I have on order, which is interesting because I just placed an order the other day. They just contacted me and told me that it's on its way, of their entire collection. This is what Kevin Hart has done in supporting them, and probably his influence bringing other people that can support this this comic book series known as Black Sands. It's bringing attention. Okay, now Kevin Hart is going to Egypt. He's African-centered. He's talking about the Africanness of Egypt, and you're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar tourist industry where there's a lot of people invested. Now, family, we don't need to understand the fact that we as a people, no matter how great we may be in reality, and no matter how great we may feel about ourselves, the insecurity and ignorance of others who do not understand their role in the African tradition are fearful. And Kevin Hart is not the only concept that has created situations that they are attacking African peoples, African American people, foundational African, foundational Black American, however we want to call ourselves, the Moors and everybody else. They are now attacking. I have been attacked. But you see, with me, the more they attack, the more I realize how true what I'm doing is. And this is why the work that we're doing and what we're attempting to do to open up the eyes, it is not just the idea of Egypt being Black, being African, being melanated. It's what they achieved. Because once we're able to embrace that concept, we will be able, because I know working with children throughout my life, throughout my career, and being a child myself, you are very impressionable. And even so much as telling a child in third grade, slaves were taken from Africa and brought to America. That's not the way to say it. Because in a child's mind, if these people, Africans, were slaves in Africa, well, then it only makes sense that they'd be slaves in America. But if you say human beings were stolen from Africa, brought to America and enslaved against their will to do the bidding of somebody else for free, then children, even in the third grade, are going to say, where's my paycheck? Where's my reparations for not getting paid? So that what we're facing here now, family, is the world is now beginning to realize. Now, I know that there are a lot of people of a lot of different cultures, even China. China don't want to admit that the original people in China that brought forward the dynastic periods of China were Black. Japan doesn't want to admit that the original shogun was the priesthood that was brought from Kush. Indians don't want to admit that the Harappa and the Mohenjo-Daro civilizations were formed by Kushites. Koreans don't want to admit that Africans brought Koreans onto the islands of Japan, met another African people known as the Ainu, and created what we today call the Japanese culture. Even in America, they don't want to admit that the original people were the Twa people over 100,000 years ago coming to this part of the world. And so what we're facing, family, is this conflict with them. We, not with them with them, and then them looking at us. Family, once and for all, let's come to this conclusion. Egypt, what we call Egypt, which was a derogatory, which was a term that was taken out of the Greek word Aegyptos, Aegyptos, was taken from an African word known as Hikapata. Hikapata. Even the word Egypt is a contamination of the original African word Hikapata. This is us, family. We did this. But it's not important just that we know this. It's that we're able to understand this. In my book, Spirituality Before Religions, I have outlined in the early chapters Kush and the role that Kush played in establishing what we today call Kemet. Coming from the south to the north, we find evidence in Sudan or Nubia in a place called Kustal. There's an incense burner. We already see it. There's evidence of this pharaonic system in Sudan 15 generations, maybe 300 years before the first dynasty of Kemet. We then see these same Kushites now moving into the southern part of what we call Kemet, but north of Sudan, in Egypt, what we call, in a place called Edfu, or the Temple of Heru, which was the resurrection, the Son of God, the original story of the Son of God. And then from Edfu, they moved to Hikapata, and they established the first dynasty under Menes or Menefer, a Black man, an African man. There are visuals of him. There are carvings of him there. This is not something that we're just saying that we don't have evidence. We have the evidence, multiple forms of evidence. And so it's important that we understand this, and that we understand that in our history, that if you go back and you do the research, it's there, but you got to take it from many different areas. And then out of this, I decided to look at the spiritual systems of the world, and I took the Abrahamic faith systems. And what I did is I did research on them, and I came to realize that the Old Testament and the New Testament actually is Shabakistan. Just simple like that. This is us. We got this. We did this. The Old Testament is the story of Asar. The New Testament is the story of Heru, the resurrection of Asar. And that is the story of the Old Testament and the New Testament. But they broke it up into two parts because they created two different religions. Actually, it's the same people. It's fundamentally the same spiritual system, but it's just that it's geared a different way and it's expressed a different way, but it's the same story. One deals with Atum, the other deals with Aten. Same thing. This is us. And I'm at the point now where I don't want to argue with these people anymore because I want to get to our children. And I want to get our children to understand what's going on. And that's why I wrote the book, Shabaka Stone for Children. And all of it is in the link in my bio. But I also want to talk to you about the documentary that Harun Neset and I developed when we went to Washington, D.C. You've all seen Chocolate City, which is the music of Washington, D.C. and the impact that it had. Focusing on Marvin Gaye, the great soul singer. But also we developed the hands that built the pyramids, built the White House. And when I was there, I spoke at a venue, at a restaurant titled E-Life, Everlasting Life. I had a chance to do a PowerPoint presentation where I showed the migration of East Africans into West Africa. There are 6 migrations. There's a book written in French. I had it translated, titled Les Chemins du Nil, which means the paths of the Nile, which means the paths that Africans took from East Africa to West Africa, avoiding the onslaught of these Indo-Europeans that are attacking Kemet. And so they're moving across into West Africa, but that's not the first time they moved across. And also West Africans came across to East Africa. There is a lively relationship between East Africa and West Africa. After all, they're the same people. And we have to understand this. And this way, when people come up and start talking about who's not what and who the original Egyptians are, that's nonsense. There's a preponderance of overwhelming evidence that shows that the people that built the pyramids were melanated people, people of pigmentation, African people with curly hair. They've got carvings where they have the kinks up on their head, where they have the braids on the sisters. This is our history. This is our culture. Now, they may attempt to steal it, because after all, they did go in there and they did overcome the people. But look at what they're doing. They didn't produce anything. Every time you see people from the outside coming in and attacking African people, you see the civilization stopping. Nothing good happens after that because the people that are progressing the civilization have been put under control. Part of the reason why the world is in the predicament it's in today is because of the same thing. And so, family, I just wanted to come to you with this message today. And I want you to understand that the information is out there. The evidence is out there. The books have been written. Civilization of Barbarism by Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. My goodness. African Civilization, Myth or Reality. My goodness. And then in 1974, when Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Theophile Obenga, the great Congolese scholar, and Dr. Diop, the Senegalese scholar, they went up into the UNESCO UN and they tore it apart. Even the people that were trying to argue with them against what they were saying, they say we were not prepared for the mastery of genius of these 2 scholars. But I pay homage to Dr. Ben, and I thank him for in his life taking us to Kemet, to show us for ourselves and to teach us for ourselves. I thank Dr. Asa Hilliard, another ancestor that methodically broke down and showed through overwhelming evidence the Africanness of the builders of the pyramids and the temples in Karnak. It's us. No matter what anybody may say, it's us. Just know that. And build from that. And understand that what we're experiencing now in the Western world is vomit. But in that vomit is the original meal. They vomited it up because they didn't have the intellectual enzymes to digest it. But you do. Study your history. Understand who you are. Know your greatness, but more importantly, own your greatness. Keep on keeping on. It ain't over till we win. Teach the children solar power. It's the future wealth of the planet. Hotep family. Peace.
Sorry, folks. Okay, so that's just one solution, but we're going to look at another solution as to what we should do as well. So I'm going to bring a short video, I think 1 minute, from a professor, teaching those little kids. And then I will add on to it, and then we will call it for a day. So let me see if I can bring it out.
Slavery. That is not where our history begins.
All right, so these are students here asking question, okay, about the same history again, and they really want to learn. So let's see what happened in there, okay.
The world did not start with slavery. That is not where our history begins. Our ancestors were inventors.
How come we don't learn about like Black history that much in school, and when we do, we don't really go that deep into it? This is the first time I've ever really hearing this stuff.
You tell me why you think you're not learning this in school. What happened? What happens? No, I'm so serious. What happens? Exactly, say it. Forbidden knowledge. What happens when you know yourself? What happens when all the people in this world look like us, know who they are, know where they came from, and understand where they came from is royal and not slavery? What happens? You get higher, you take back your power. And this is not only happening in this school. Schools across the nation with children that look like you. Y'all gotta stick up for yourselves. You cannot keep sitting in these classrooms thinking it's cute to do nothing all day. You're not thinking. You're just going with the program, and I need you to be rebellious.
All right, so what do you think about the last video in our classroom with that little princess, that little queen, educating the kings and queen in our classroom? And there was one of the king, I believe, in the background that said, and she asked the question, why do you think the system wants you to go with the program, or they don't want you to learn? And one of the king at the back said, because they are trying to forbid us from learning it. And she said, exactly. If you learn it, what happened? You take your place back in the world. You take back your power. And that is why these people are so afraid, because they know the horrible things they have done with their power. They know what they have done against Black people or African people with their power. So in their mind, in their delusional mind, if Black people get power, we're going to react. We're going to do to them what they have been doing to us systematically. That is why they are afraid. And that is why the little queen in there said, if we learn the truth, we take back our power. We take back our place in the world. And now, taking back our place in the world, let me make this clear to these so-called European or Westerner. Don't be afraid. And whether you are afraid or not, the time has come that we are not going to go by your narrative. We are going to take back our place. And taking back our place just means we be in our lane. We don't care what your lane is. We just want to be in our lane. We just want you to leave us. We just want to control our African continent. I mean, taking back our power does not mean coming to Europe and influencing on your right and taking your resources or exploiting you, or coming to America, exploiting America. There is nothing America have that African people do not have, or we don't have on the African continent. There is nothing European people or Europe have that we don't have on the African continent, that we are coming to exploit you or enslave you or whatsoever the situation may be. We don't care about what America have, and we don't care about what Europe have. You people are the one so afraid and trying to hide the truth and not want for the generation to learn the truth. Because the truth means power. The truth means identity. The truth means taking the rightful place of that particular person or people or race. And the truth means we will just take our place and take our resources and take control of what we have. The truth just means knowledge. The truth just means freedom. The truth just means leaving captivity. And that is why we are up to. We are not saying black power because we want to be black supremacy. No. You brought a division. Black people did not bring about racism. When black people met you, when you encounter with black people taught you their culture, their way of life. They brought out every hidden information. And they taught you are human like them. And they taught you it. And afterward, you went and backslapped them and betrayed them. That is not what black people want to do with you. Black people just want to go back to where they were. That's all. And by we going back to where we were, we have no plan of anything of such that you have done to African people. We don't care. We just want to be who we are. You be you and we be us. You already created a division. You created a division and we say, okay, then fine. Let's go with it. And then you afraid. You created racism. And then we say, okay, fine. Let's go with it. And then you afraid. When you created it, you did it for centuries of years. When we ask you, what you're doing is bad. Let us unite. You said no. Black here, white only, black only. This restaurant is not for black men. This restaurant is for black people. How they call it, healthcare or hospital, only white only. We told you this is bad. This is wrong. And you said it was good. You call all kind of names, and we told you these names that you call it will haunt you. It's bad. This is not our identity. And you said it was. Now, the time has come. All right? The time has come where we agree that, okay, let us divide. Let there be division. You said, let there be division. There was division. We said no, and now we have come to realize it and agree that, okay, let there be division. And then that's the time you want to come to tell us, no, division is bad. We can't go division. In fact, when you learn your history, this is what will happen. We are afraid, this, that. No, we told you, and we don't care. That division, there is going to be division. Black people are going to do black, and you do yours, period. When you are practicing racism, we told you. Now we want it. The time we want to practice racism, the time we want to accept racism, then it become a problem. You don't want it. Oh, so if it is you, it should be good. Then when it comes to the other people, it should be bad. It's not good. So when the time have come to accept it, that okay, we want division. Okay, we want racism. Then now it is a problem that you want to preach to others that we should be one. You betray us in the past. We don't trust you. And we don't believe you. So even if we say, okay, let us become one, they fight that. You betray us in the past when we welcome you for us to become one. When we taught you our culture, our way of life, and then you turn around, you say, our culture was bad, was lesser. And then you call it inferior. You call, and then everything we brought to the face of this planet, you say it came from space. Everything we created, you say alien created it. You took away the credit from us. You deprive us from learning what we created. You said, no, we're not going by white curriculum or European curriculum. And anybody that want to bring out about black invention or black existence, that person become an outcast in your midst. Now that we are coming together and united and say, okay, then if you want to make an outcast, so be it. We agree. Now you have problem with it. Nkrumah said, forward ever, backward never. We are not going back. We are going forward. We don't care. We agree that there should be racism. We agree that there should be separation. You brought about separation. Your school system different. Black people's school system different. When you went to Africa, when we introduced you on the African continent, we never said black people go and learn here. White people go and learn here. We never brought separation. When we introduced you to the African continent, the continent you said discover. Because any place the white men go, they discover it. But when we introduce you on the African continent, we never told you, when we're talking to Timbuktu, when we're talking to the Sahel Empire, we never told you black people learn here only. You sat down in classroom with black people and we taught you math, sciences. And after you came there with your Socrates, with your Alexander the Great then came and said everything about Africa was alien. So it was aliens that came from the spirit and taught Alexander the Great, so-called great. It was alien that came from the sky or space that taught Socrates. When all of them went Africa, they landed. So it was alien that taught them math and sciences. It was alien that taught all those Greek philosophers that became great in Rome. It was alien. When they went Africa, it was alien that came from some unknown places and taught them. It was alien. Nonsense. Now we agree. We agree to be ourselves so that those aliens can return again. And you don't want to know. We want those aliens to come back. And the only way those aliens can come back, I believe, is for African people to unite. It's for African people to really start begging the white men of equality. Because we have asked them for so long. They are just another man. Why should we ask them for equality when they are just another man? Why should we ask them for equality? In fact, when we have the war in our hand, we have the resources they want. Everything they want, we have it. When we have everything in our hand, then we ask them for equality. How you going to beg somebody to come and eat your food? You never beg anybody to eat your food. So be it. If you call them to eat and they say they are full, why should you beg them? Folks, we end here today. This is what I have to give. But again, like we're watching a video, we cannot continue to go with the narrative of these evil people, according evil people. Yes. Because one who tried to erase your existence, one who tried to erase what you have done is evil. It's devil. The devil is not in the sky. They are devil. The devil is not on the ground. Devil is just someone who go against you. And salvation is just mean to be free from someone who go against you. Salvation means to be free from your enemies. Now, people confuse the word salvation versus sin. Salvation is different from sin. Sin means doing something that is wrong. Sin means doing something that is wrong that you're not supposed to do. That is sin. Whereas salvation, it means to be free from your enemies. Salvation means be free. I'm free. I have salvation. I have freedom. That's salvation right there. You have freedom to do your own way, to do your things, right? Nobody has to dictate to you. You don't have to be whipped by somebody. Somebody don't have to tell you the time you're supposed to eat. No, you can't eat at this time. You eat whenever you want to eat, whenever you feel hungry. That's salvation. Different from sin. By right, those people we call enemies, they are the sinner because they sin against us. They do things that is not right. And that is why we need to be free from them. They are our enemies. We'll stop here today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.